There we go. Getting it sorted. Okay. Whew. It's a bit sticky today. Hi everyone! Welcome back to The Obsessive Maker. It is not a podcast today. Today I'm actually going to show you everything that I made in 2022. I did a poll over on Instagram and it was pretty much a 100% vote for making an episode all about everything I made in 2022. I'm probably like the last one to release this type of video. I'm a little bit slow to get started, but you know what? Good things come to those who wait, right? So hopefully you'll enjoy me showing you everything I've made. It is a mix of knitting and sewing, and would you believe it? I added up everything I made and I made 22 items in 2022. Just a coincidence though. And I will say a couple of these things I did start the year before, but the bulk of the work was done in 2022 and it was completed in 2022 as well. So I think that's quite extensive, don't you? I mean, I look at this and honestly, this is probably most of my wardrobe. I do have a few older pieces that are wonderful and have been my go-to in my wardrobe for the last few years that I've made. I'll cover those in another episode. But everything I've made, I have worn, with the exception of a couple items I'm going to show you towards the end, which were kind of fails. Maybe not so much fails, but they need a little bit of work, a little bit of tweaking. So we'll get into it. I'm not really going to go in any kind of order. It's just the order I kind of found them in my, I scrolled through my Instagram feed and my Ravelry projects page, and this is kind of almost the chronological order that I found them in. It is a mix of things that I've made for myself and also for other people. Ones I've made for other people, I've already given away, so I'll actually pop photos in here so that you'll be able to see them as well. And some items, probably most of the knitted items, you will have seen in my podcast for 2022 if you've been watching. So we will get started. So I know for sure this is the very first thing I made in 2022. It is a gingham, white and purple gingham style arc hope dress, and I made it with some piping there, some kind of coral colored piping. It's blowing out a little bit on camera, so I'm hoping it's not too bad for you, but this has been a go-to hot weather dress. And yeah, when it's hot and steamy like it is today and I'm really feeling the humidity, this is the kind of thing I want to be wearing. But I've decided to get dressed properly today. So this dress is actually finished with a keyhole closure at the back and a button. Honestly, it's not needed. If you make this style arc hope dress, just omit that, save yourself some time and energy. I mean, it's a cute little detail, but you know what, you do not need it to get this over your head. One addition I did make was to add ties at the side. So if I didn't want such a voluminous shape on me, I could just either tie the ties at the back or I could tie them at the front just to cinch in the waist. And yeah, it's been a really good go-to dress. It's perfect to throw on over some swimmers when you go to the beach or whatever. The next thing I made was the Bali top by Pattern Fantastique. And I don't know if you can really make out the detail on this. It's quite a voluminous top, but it has this fitted bib, like a yoke here at the front and at the back that really hugs your chest and your upper back so that it's a really flattering shape. And it has these beautiful, it has two options for a neckline. One is not so plunging and the other is a plunging neckline, probably to about there. But the ties close up that neckline, but it's so flattering. I went for the plunging neckline and the two ties work really well. Again, this is a really cool top. It elevates any kind of jeans and trainer outfit. It's a really good one for me to wear to work as well, because the city gets kind of hot at this time of year. So coming kind of like in and out of the air conditioning and onto the street during a work day, this is the kind of thing that I like to wear. It's breezy, it's cool. It's made out of an ikat Indian cotton, which I absolutely love, and I'm so glad I made it in this fabric. And I need more of these in my wardrobe. So I've already cut out a few to batch sew, which I'll show you in a future episode. Highly recommend the pattern, by the way. So the next thing on my list are a couple of accessories. Now, accessories that I have knitted, and I knitted a couple of Stockholm hats. So this one here, I actually started, probably back in 2021. I can't be 100% certain, but I started it, I faltered, it got shoved in a basket, and I only just picked it up again last year because I was so close to finishing. Like literally, I got to this point on the hat, and I had somehow stumbled on the instructions, lost my confidence, and just put it aside. So I thought, you know what, just finish the damn thing, get it done, and I did. And it's the nicest hat. I'm not going to put it on because it's too hot for that today. But this is just a superwash navy merino DK with I think a nylon mohair held together with it, and I can't remember which brand it was, but I did get it from Morris & Sons. I want to say the colorway was Calabrito, and I think it might be, no, maybe it was Malabrigo. Anyway, if you check out my Ravelry page, it will be there. And I love the hat pattern so much that later in 2022, I made this beautiful emerald green one, just with 2 4-ply held together. It's perfect, it's great, I love it, it really suits me. And yeah, you can never have enough hats. Speaking of hats, I was totally on a hat knitting binge last year, and I saw this pattern by Creadia Studio. I think she's changed her name since, but again, it'll be linked in my Ravelry page. It's the Basset Hat. It's the cutest thing. It's got this deer stalker style features with the ear flaps and the flap at the front. I've actually got that pinned up with a safety pin at the moment, but you can stitch it in place with some extra yarn. And it's got either tie details for under the chin, or you can knit like a strap and a button, but I prefer the tie details. I just think they're a little bit cuter. So I actually knitted 2 of these. I knitted one for myself in this duck egg blue colorway I got from Skeins in New Zealand, Skein NZ, and it's held together with some mohair I had in my stash from Knit Picks that I bought ages ago and have never used. So it was a perfect use for that. And it was really just an opportunity to kind of check out the yarn, see if I liked it. It had more of like a rustic feel, and I did enjoy it. So it might be a yarn I use again in the future. So the next thing, another knitted item, and you will all have seen this. It's the Souffle by Penrose Knits, and this was part of a test knit. I joined the test knit for this, and it is a gorgeous top. I test knit I think the size 7, and after completing this I realized I probably would have been better off with the 6 because this is just too big for me. It's knit with 1 strand of mohair for this top yoke section, and then 2 strands of mohair for the rest of the top. And it's just a little bit too low cut, a little bit too see-through here for my liking. And I'm realizing that we don't really have the climate here in Melbourne to really be wearing 100% mohair tops for any length of time. Like, honestly, I think I've worn this once, and I was actually going to sell it off in a wardrobe kind of declutter sale that I did, and there were a few people interested, but I think it was just too big for them as well, you know. So I will hold on to it. Maybe one day I'll frog it, maybe I'll figure something out, or maybe I will rehome it. Who knows? It's beautiful. I'd like to knit another one, but just not in mohair. And I know Laura from Penrose Knits has a few other souffle patterns which are non-mohair ones, so I think I'll be adding that to a list in the future. So the next item I have for you is this merino bamboo lightweight turtleneck. It does not look good on the hanger because it is such a stretchy fabric. It just kind of sags on the hanger. And the neckline, I mean, it is a proper turtleneck. It's supposed to be folded over, but it's just such a soft fabric. It kind of just drapes quite a lot. But this pattern is the Seamwork Nina. It is my go-to turtleneck pattern. I absolutely love it. This just wasn't quite the right fabric pattern match. The fabric's too drapey. It doesn't stop me wearing it though. I wear it all the time. It's just that I can only wear it once or twice before I have to wash it again to kind of get the fabric recovery back. Yeah, I also have a little confession to make. I have a habit of not finishing the raw edges of knit fabric, and I will show you. I've just left the hem edge of this turtleneck raw because I can't be bothered getting out my twin needle on my sewing machine, and I always have trouble with it. I don't know why. I don't have a, what's it called? The special machine that does like the knit fabric hemming, that kind of thing. I have an overlocker, which I think can probably do something similar. I just haven't figured it out yet. So I take the cheats way, the lazy way, and I don't hem it. No one notices, so. You can get away with that kind of thing when you make your own clothes, right? So next on my list, and I do actually have a list in front of me so I remember everything. We have my purple wool biker jacket. I am so proud of this make. I have been wanting something like this for ages. It is a traditional biker jacket style coat. Honestly, I would love one of these in sheepskin, but again, we just don't really have the climate here for that. And after years of dreaming of trying to find a sheepskin version in an op shop or a vintage store, I gave up, and I saw something similar to this on Pinterest. I think it was an Acme jacket, but it was leather in this color, this style, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make myself one of those one day. So I actually found the fabric at Super Cheap Fabrics. They do this amazing kind of wool cashmere blend, which is what this is, for a really decent price. I think it was $20 a meter. So I nabbed myself 2.5 meters, and this is the result. And it is a quick sew pattern. I can't remember the exact number, but if you go check out my Instagram, it features quite heavily and it'll have the number on there. And this is the back. So I will just say I love the zip details. I splashed out a little bit. I bought some lovely zips for this project in particular. It does do up, it's kind of like double-breasted. I would never wear it that way though. And the pocket zips are just super cute as well. And I love the lining that I used for it. Again, I cheated though. I haven't fully lined this. I've lined the back and the two fronts with this beautiful Marc Jacobs silk that I got at the fabric store a few years ago, but I haven't actually done the sleeves. I was going to do it all by hand, and I have sewn in the body lining by hand, but for some reason I just have this like mental hurdle when it comes to sewing in the sleeves by hand as well. So it's not needed right now. So maybe one day I will sew in those sleeve pieces that I've cut out and prepared, but that day won't be today. Right, purple biker jacket. We have another knitted accessory. This time it's another hat. No surprises there. I made the Beret #1 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. It is the cutest beret pattern. I have knitted this before. I knitted one up for my mum, and I just love the stitch pattern on the top that's kind of made by the decreases into the center. And then I topped it off with a little navy blue pom-pom from Holst Garn, and this yarn here is also Holst. This is their cashmere blend as well. I bought a couple of cakes just to try out, because it was quite, not really pricey, but it was pricier than the other Holst, and I just wanted to try it out just to see how it felt after washing and then how much it would soften up, and this was just a really good exercise to do that. So the only unfortunate thing is that it's too small for my head. It fits on my head, but it just looks too small. So it's another one of those items that will probably end up going in a wardrobe declutter sale in the future. Ta-da! So you will all have seen this, hopefully, because it has featured very heavily on my feed on Instagram and in my podcast. And it is the Andrea Mowry Illuminate sweater. I love it so much. I think her sample that she knit for the pattern is in similar colors, and these yarns are from Wishbone Yarns, who is an independent yarn dyer in South Africa. And she just does the most beautiful bases. She does these lovely merino mohair bases, and also merino linen singles, and that's what this is made out of. So the dark blue is a merino linen single, and the pale color is 2 strands of the mohair, silk mohair held together. I have a few of her other yarns as well in a merino mohair base as a fingering weight. And I bought it as a fade, and I don't know what to do with it, so I'll figure that out in the future. But I just love the colorways that she dyes. This is her Borrow Blue colorway in both the mohair and the linen singles, and they just complement each other beautifully. And it took me so long. I put this label in, I don't know if you can see it. I had it from my I have a label stash, and I think it was one of Kylie and the Machine's labels. So she has a label for everything. Woo. I can't wait to get these off the hanger. They shouldn't be on hangers, so but they're just on hangers for this purpose today. Okay, so the Illuminate. Next up is some loungewear. I was seriously lacking loungewear last year. I burnt through all of my pandemic loungewear. It needed to go in the recycling, honestly. And Spotlight around the corner had some really beautiful May Gibbs terry cloth fabric, and I thought I'd make myself some girly sweatpants. And these are the Seamwork Mel sweatpants or track pants, and they are super cute. I got this purple ribbing, and I accidentally cut it. No, I didn't accidentally cut it too wide. I didn't have wide enough elastic to fill the channel for the pattern, so I just put in the elastic that I had, which kind of created this paper bag ruffle top to the waistband. And then I added a really cute little velvet ribbon. And these are the pants. They're very oversized, so I think I may have overestimated my size, but I finished them off again with the purple ribbing on the hem of the legs. And they're just a really simple sweatpant. They're kind of a bit heavy and hot for summer, so they are a winter item, but they have been lovely. And it also meant that I got to kind of get rid of my daggy old holey sweatpants that I've been wearing for 2 years. So next up is the Weekend Slipover by Petite Knit. Here we go. It's a very oversized V-neck drop shoulder slipover. One thing I would change if I were to knit it again is, rather than a fully in the round hem, I would do a split hem. And I'm actually thinking of ripping back to this point here and doing a split hem, because it's just so much more flattering on me. It will fall much nicer and it'll actually make it a lot more wearable for me. I knit this up in a DK from Skein and Z. Again, it's a good yarn shop. I was just trying to try out their different bases that they had. They're really reasonably priced, and I just got enough really for this. I actually have a couple of balls left over because I overestimated how much I needed. But I had a really gorgeous mohair from Louie and Lola in Tasmania that I wanted to pair with a kind of sagey green yarn, and I think this worked out beautifully. It's such a gorgeous color. It's really, really lovely. I just don't wear it that much because I just don't find it flattering on me. So I will go back, I will rip back, I will re-knit the hem, probably have it longer at the back and shorter at the front, just so I can do the whole French tuck thing that I've got going on here as well. And yeah, hopefully it'll be a much more wearable item in autumn and winter. Also, speaking of what I'm wearing, sorry I keep adjusting myself, it's just as I move my shirt slides back. So I'm actually wearing a cotton, Indian cotton shirt that I made back in, I think 2021. It is the, and I've gone blank, Paper Theory is the pattern company. I've forgotten the name of the pattern. I'll put it down here later on when I'm editing. So yeah, I just made it up. It normally comes with like pockets here. I just didn't think it would be the right choice to include those pockets with this fabric. And as boring as sewing a white shirt is, I have to say, this has been a really useful item to have in my wardrobe, and I think I need a few more of them. I also have, I'm just going to adjust the camera so you can see them. I'm also wearing a pair of saguaro pants, which is just in navy linen. And these I literally made recently because the original pair, there we go. I think that's better. The original pair I made last year. And I made them in this lovely heavyweight minty green, sagey green linen that again I got from Spotlight. This whole outfit is Spotlight, just because it was affordable and the fabric was on sale, which is good. But yes, this is the original pair of saguaro pants that I made. They just fit really nicely. I find they, for an elastic waist pant, they sit really nicely at your waist. The drape at the front is really flattering, and they fit me like a tailored pair of trousers. And I love that. And the fact that they have roomy pockets as well and wide leg, just like, this is my sweet spot for pants. And the reason I sewed them up is I've actually been delaying making pants for a while. I had a pair of Nini culottes in a kind of like I guess like a jungle print that I wore for ages, probably about 3 or 4 years, and they finally gave out. And really they had been my crutch pants. I'd been leaning on them for a long time. When they finally gave out, I was forced to make trousers. So I made these, love them. So I made 2 other pairs, one of which I'm wearing now. Long story short. But yes, So these feature a label from Molly, who is on Instagram. She does labels as well. She's Melbourne based. Yes, she is Melbourne based. She makes her own labels. She's also designing her own fabrics and selling those, selling that at limited releases, which I love. She does really kind of different style of prints, like what's it called? Design on the fabric, which is nice. Like Ellie Whitaker, if you've heard of her, she does really vibrant patterns. I just find there's so much of that now, and I'm taking a step back from the bright in-your-face prints now to kind of more muted tonal colors, as you can probably tell. I know this is still colorful, but a few years ago I was very much more bold, complex prints in your face, and it was fun for a while, but I feel like just everyone's wearing that at the moment, and my style is changing to more tonal, simple things. I got distracted. Okay, so moving on, where did we end up? Oh yes, the weekend slipover was really the last thing. So my next thing, I'm kind of coming out of winter now. I've been wanting to make something from this beautiful emerald green linen that I had in my stash for ages, and Paper Cut Patterns released the Ashling blouse and dress, which has this gorgeous ruffle sleeve detail. They also have a version with a ruffle on the collar. Sorry, not on the collar, a ruffle instead of this collar. So the ruffle's actually coming out from the collar stand. And it comes in either a shirt or dress form. And I went for the shirt option because that's the amount of fabric that I had. And I love the idea of this shirt, but there are things that I would change if I were to make it again. I love the sleeve detail and the button detail here that I did. Actually, what the pattern calls for is actually a buttonhole, but my machine wouldn't go through the multiple layers of this heavyweight linen, so I put a button loop there instead. So I do like that detail that I put in there, so I would do that again. Next time I would go with a lighter weight fabric. So this fabric was a heavyweight, or is a heavyweight linen. I wouldn't necessarily choose that again for this shirt. Although I will say it has benefits because it doesn't wrinkle as easily, and also if it does wrinkle, they drop out. They just kind of drop out of the fabric, which is great. The other thing is it's very oversized. Now I sized down a little bit on this, but I should have, or I wish I had, actually sized down a couple of other sizes because it's just too big. And in relation to the oversized shape, the collar, when it's on, it looks very small. Now this collar is actually made up of a collar stand and a collar. But when it's worn, it looks like a camp collar. And if you know what I mean by camp collar, it's one of the ones that doesn't actually have the collar stand. It's just the collar sewn directly onto the front. And when it lays open, it does actually look like that. So I feel a little bit duped in terms of the style of the collar. I wish the collar was slightly bigger and more pointed so that it was more of a statement and had better proportions in relation to the rest of the shirt. So that's a couple of things I would change. One final thing I would change on this is the hem. It's a curved hem, and frankly I do not think a curved hem on this shirt works because when it's worn it flares out at the back, so it actually stands out from your back a bit when you wear it. So yes, so it's not exactly how I imagined, but I do still wear it. It's kind of my go-to statement blouse. People either love it or hate it. Most people who've commented said they love it, and there's people who've looked at it and not commented at all, which means they hate it. But who cares, you know? So that's the Ashling blouse by Paper Cut Patterns. Next up, we have the Agnes PJs by Paper Theory, and I have to say Paper Theory does some really well drafted patterns. If you haven't checked out Paper Theory, go check them out. The Zadie jumpsuit is by far my favorite pattern, and the Agnes PJs, which I'm about to show you, are an awesome pattern as well. They look very simple, but they're so well drafted, and the fit is, I do not have to make any adjustments on any of these things, which is great. Although I did buy the Miller trousers pattern, and although I've made it twice, I've barely worn them because I should have actually adjusted the rise of the crotch when I remade them, and I didn't because I was being lazy. But they are a lovely trouser pattern, I just didn't make them properly, so I did have to make adjustments for that one. But I digress. May I present a very wrinkled seersucker version of the Agnes PJs. This is a pink and purple seersucker fabric from Spotlight. Across the way. Very easy for me to get to and very tempting because I look out my window and there it is. But I couldn't go past this seersucker. It's light, it's cool, it's fun, it's cute. This is very wrinkled because it's just come out of the wash, and I don't iron my pajamas and they're seersucker, so why bother? So this is what I'm talking about when I say a camp collar. You see the collar is just sewn onto the front. There we go, there's no collar stand. So that's what I mean about a camp collar. But this is a lovely just kind of dolman sleeve, or yeah, grown on sleeve shirt. It's really simple, but it's very effective and very flattering as well. And I'm tempted to use this pajama top pattern as an actual shirt pattern in the future. It has a really cute pocket detail. I included a little label on my pocket. There we go. Everything's looking really blown out on my camera. I really hope this isn't blown out for you guys. There we go. And oh, you probably couldn't see the buttons on the shirt because I haven't ironed it, but I will show you the buttons I used because I had one spare, and I actually sewed it to the center front of the pajama shorts because it's too cute not to. These are short shorts for me, but they're great for summer. And frankly, I think I'll be changing into these as soon as I finish filming because it's getting a little too steamy. Yeah. So yes, I love this. I want to make like all the pajamas out of this pattern. One final thing I will say, if you have been dying to make yourself some luxury pajamas and you've seen the Closet Core pajama pattern, right now I can't remember the name of it. It's very similar. The only thing is it actually has a sleeve that you sew onto the arm side. Save yourself some time and effort. Go for this pattern. It's lovely. It's much simpler to use. You can still jazz it up, luxury it up by adding piping to the collar and to the pockets. Yes, and to the set, you know, along the button band. And you can do the same with the shorts if you wanted to. You could add piping. There is no side seam on the shorts, so it's like each leg is one piece, one pattern piece. So you only have front and back seams, but you could add piping to the hem of your shorts or pants. You could just do a turn up collar and add piping that way. Collar, hem. This is such an easy sew, such a simple and effective and really elegantly designed pattern for a pair of pajamas. I do love it. So I recommend this over the Closet Core. The Closet Core is just too much effort for a pair of PJs. Right. What do we got next? Agnes PJs just did that. last year, 2022, I ventured into the world of shawls. Previously, I had stated that I'm not a shawl person. I do wear scarves, but shawls, I've never really seen the point of them. But when working from home on cold days in winter, I can see the benefit of a shawl. So I treated myself to the book called 52 Weeks of Shawls, or 52 Weeks of Scarves, as the book I've got here is called. And this is shawl number 1, and it is the Venus shawl. And it's basically a really simple trapezoid. Yes, I think that's the right word. Really simple trapezoid shawl with slip stitch detail. Yep, slip stitch detail and shell motifs throughout. The most complex part of this shawl were the shells, but once you'd done one row or one section repeat, it became a lot easier to remember. And this took me months to knit. I actually knitted it smaller than recommended. And I used almost 4 skeins of fingering, and the reason it is kind of like a fade is because I had lots of mohair scraps that I wanted to use up, so I held them together with a fairly neutral speckled fingering. And I started at this end here, and I worked my way down this end, and I got to a point where I'd run out of all my spare leftover mohair, and I had to buy another ball of mohair. You know, I committed to doing the shawl, so I had to finish it. So I ended up getting something completely different, a darker mohair that I held together, and I like the difference between it all. I mean, it is a fade, but it's just beautiful. It's going to be lovely in winter. I haven't yet blocked it. It's a hot sunny day today, so maybe I should do that today. I just can't be bothered. But we'll see. I love it, and I'm sure I'll get loads of wear out of it. So the next thing is another knitted item, and I only knitted this because I needed something quick and easy, not necessarily quick, but small and easy to knit on the train, commuting to and from work. There's a lot of wasted time, so I was listening to audiobooks anyway, and I wanted something to knit, and I had some leftover yarn, so I knitted the Sophie scarf. It's simple pattern, really basic. I had some grey baby merino fingering, and I had some leftover mohair from this weekend slip over, and I just wanted to use up the mohair, and because it's such gorgeous mohair. You can see how beautifully it works with both the sagey green color and the grey, and yeah, I'm glad I used it up. This will just be a really handy kind of woolly scarf to throw in my backpack for work, and on really cold windy days waiting at the train station, I could just throw it around my neck and add a little bit of extra warmth. Yeah, so there's really not much to say about that one. So what's next? Finish on Sophie scarf. I've already talked about my saguaro pants, the minty green ones. So we will move on to the blanket vest that I made. Now, a little bit of history. I've forgotten what they're called now. A few years ago, probably about 4 years ago, I saw this company or social enterprise in, I think it was either Sweden or Norway, could have been Denmark as well. They had taken lovely old blankets and they were turning them into coats, and I was just obsessed with this idea. And since moving back to Australia, I had seen so many old Onka Paringa or 100% Australian woolen blankets in op shops. Like, they are everywhere, and I'd been obsessed with the idea of making a coat out of one. And I didn't just want your typical kind of like pink and pastel squared blanket. I wanted something special, like something with a beautiful pattern. And last year I stumbled across this beautiful gum nut motif in the op shop. It was just a small blanket, like a baby's blanket, and I couldn't really do much with it other than to turn it into a vest. So I did as little as possible. I utilized the existing corners. Oh, it's double-sided, by the way, so it's a negative kind of, so it's like cream and blue on one side, and then the blue dominates on the other. So it's just gorgeous. So I did as little as possible to it. It's minimal waste. I do have some spare pieces left over because I'm toying with the idea of adding patch pockets at the front, or perhaps patch pockets on the inside so that it doesn't ruin the line of the front. It's very oversized and it would benefit from wearing a belt around the waist, but on cold days it's just like a nice extra layer if you don't want a full-on coat. If you want like to wear your knitwear and you don't want to be too hot, this is a really good layer to put on. I think I've worn it twice. I did make it towards the end of winter. So yeah, it hasn't got much wear, but it's lovely. And there we go, I'll take this off the hanger. I made this little kind of label for the inside. I get my own labels made at the Dutch Label Company, I think it's called. And yeah, I just decided to do something a little bit fancy with it. You see the inside seams are not, not too fancy, just kind of stitch them down. The only real thing I did was add bias tape to the arm openings and fold that under. Excuse me. So yes, hopefully I'll get more wear out of this in winter. It's just a beautiful, beautiful motif, typically Australian, and honestly I haven't seen this anywhere else, so I'm so glad I snapped it up. I think it cost me $20 Australian in the op shop. So yeah, it has a few stains on it, which you probably can't see. It's like one yellowing one there, a few others elsewhere. You see them more on the cream side than you do the blue, so it's no biggie. Okay, so that's it for things I've made for myself, but I made quite a few things for other people. I made my husband a vest, which I actually found. I didn't think I was going to be able to show you today, but I found it hanging up in the wardrobe. Everything else that's knitted I had actually vacuum packed away for summer, so I dug it out for you to show you today. I'm glad I did. So if there are creases and all sorts of things, that's why. But I made the Drops design, which is a free pattern, Boston vest in this lovely red mithril yarn from New Zealand. And my husband was super stoked to find there was yarn called mithril yarn because he's a Lord of the Rings fan, and so he bought some in this lovely kind of red, burgundy red, and we also bought some in a grey, silver grey. And he wanted a vest, a hobbit-like vest, knitted out of mithril yarn. Now the Boston vest is pieced together, so you knit the back and then you knit the fronts and then you stitch them together at the shoulder seams. Oh, you do join them at the underarm. So yes, you knit the back first to this point, and then you knit the front to that point, and then the other front to that point, and then you join them all in the round, not really in the round, but you join them all at the underarm to then knit back and forth. And then you pick up stitches along the neckline and along the front, and you knit the collar and the button bands. And this is the first time I'd done buttonholes, and can I just say that was so much easier than I thought it would be. So yeah, I was really stoked to learn a new skill, even though this took me forever to make. I resented it the entire time, but I'm so glad, so happy with the final product. And I actually added on my own self-drafted little pocket for Frodo's golden ring. And I had these lovely horn buttons in my button stash that went beautifully with this. So my husband loves it. I've just recently washed and blocked it again. So it's ready for winter. So yes, other things I've made, and I don't have these with me, so I will put photos here for you. So I actually made a Basset Hat, which is this hat, for my husband out of the grey mithril yarn. And I'll put a photo of my husband here. He'll hate me for doing this, but he's wearing both the hat and the vest at the same time, looking very pleased with himself. And it is just the cutest hat. I love it, and I can't wait until it's super cold or we go on holiday somewhere where it's snowing so we can wear our matching hats and look like total geeks. So yes, so I made that mithril Basset hat for him. I also made a couple of things for my dad. So I had knitted a couple of things for my mum in previous years, and my dad was kind of missing out. Although I did knit him a zipper sweater man from Petite Knit, not last year, but the year before, but it was just way too big for him. So I had already invested time in him, but I figured this time I'd make him something he could wear. So I made him the terrazzo neck, which is kind of like a giant knitted dickie. So it's a V-neck front, well, not a V-neck, sorry, it's a bib that's kind of like a V-shaped at the front and the back with a turtleneck. And I knitted it in this brown Aran worsted weight yarn from Skeins, New Zealand, and I'll pop a quick photo here just so you can see what it looks like on. That's my dad, and yeah, Dad loves it. It's perfect. He can wear it, just throw it on under a jacket when he goes for walks at the beach, and if it gets too hot you can just take it off, so it gives enough body warmth without being too hot with long sleeves. So yeah, I think I'd like to make one of those for myself. The only thing I probably would do is I'd add ties to the front and back so that I could tie them and keep them flat against my body. Just an idea. Yeah. I also made my dad an Oslo hat to keep his head warm this winter. So I made that in a lovely yarn that he chose. I think he bought it from Little Woolly. And here is the hat now. I'll put the picture here. I had knitted an Oslo hat previously for myself. They do not suit me at all, but they really suit my dad, so I'm glad he really enjoyed that hat. So finally, we come to the fails section of my makes. Now, up until this point, everything I've knit and sewed in 2022 is complete, and that's a total of 22 items. 13 knitted items and 9 sewn items. And this fails section is not included in that because they're either incomplete, not made beyond the muslin, or I've started them and frogged them. So I was really excited this year to join the MCAL 2022, and I got started with it. I really struggled. I didn't make it, and I ended up frogging it because I was like, you know what, I'm lagging behind. I was so far behind. I was finding it really stressful to keep up, and there were skills and techniques in there I'd never used before, and I'm not the fastest knitter either. So the benefit of being slow was that I was able to see how the pattern was progressing. And I decided in the end that ultimately I didn't like where it was going. It was something that I wasn't going to wear, so I just decided to stop. So it's kind of a fail, but in a good way, because I didn't waste all that time knitting something that I wasn't going to wear. But I did love my yarn choices, and I do plan to knit something from them. Probably the Starflake shawl. I've yet to decide, but I do have the Starflake shawl on my Ravelry queue, and I will make that in the future, so I've got the yarn stashed away. So another fail for me was the Matchy Matchy Sewing Club's Collage Gather Top. This is just a toile. I've put this together from scraps of fabric I had in my scraps bin. As you can see, the top itself, it's a front panel, and then you've got kind of sleeve side panels and then ruffled bottom side panels. I love the idea of the sides, and I really love the look of the sides, but I did notice in the larger sizes of this pattern, the center panel just becomes too wide. Like visually for me, the larger the size, the larger the center panel, it actually makes the top look disproportionately wider than the side panels, if you know what I mean. Like the side panel and center panels are just disproportionate in the larger sizes. So I sewed this up. I stuck on some bias binding that I was actually going to finish this neckline and tuck this in and sew it down, but I tried it on at this stage and I just decided it wasn't for me. So it's not a complete waste of fabric. These were just scraps, and I'm not usually a muslin maker. I don't usually do a toile or a muslin, but I'm glad I did it with this because I was going to actually sew this up with some really nice gingham linen, and I'm glad I didn't waste it. So that's kind of a lesson learned, which is great. I'm glad I did the muslin, and I'm glad I didn't waste the fabric. So yeah, you know. Excuse me. I've got mohair in my throat. So the other item that I'm putting in the fail section is not so much a fail, but just it's something that requires adjustments before I finish it. So I was determined to make myself a lovely dress from this gorgeous gingham linen fabric that I've had in my stash for a while. I bought this from Tessuti. It was not cheap, so I really wanted to sew something that I knew I would wear and that I knew that would suit me. So I went with the Closet Core Elodie dress, which is a classic wrap front V-neck. The difference between this and, for example, a Zadie jumpsuit hack into a dress is that this has pleats at the bust, and also the skirt has kind of like almost like a circle skirt, a fitted circle skirt style, which I haven't worn before, but I know is very flattering. Sorry, just keep adjusting myself. So this dress is currently inside out because when I tried it on, it was just way too saggy in the bust. Like it was gaping so much that it was like wide open here. And I discovered that actually if I took in the shoulders by about an inch at the neckline, fading out, grading out to nothing at the shoulder on either side, that would almost fix the issue of the gaping and just bring the neckline closer into my chest rather than sagging out, and would deal with that issue. And it actually made the dress hang much more nicely on my body. So I actually haven't finished the inside waistband yet, so because I didn't want to put any more effort into it until I'd figured out that fit issue. So I will eventually finish this. I've got it pinned so that I know where I need to take it in. Once I've done that, I'll try it on again, see if it fits nicely there, and then I will go ahead and I will finish the waistband. I've got to add ties to both fronts. At the moment I just have it pinned so it doesn't all fall open, and I will finish the waistband by sewing that down. But it does actually look really nice on once it's all fitted properly, so I will finish it. And I decided to use one of the sweary sewist labels from Kylie and the Machine. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. That kind of sums it up with how I felt when I realized this didn't really fit me. So I didn't end up finishing it for Christmas, but you know what? It's still summer. I can still get plenty of wear out of it as long as I make my adjustments soon. So yes. And that wraps up my 2022, everything I've made, both knitting and sewing wise. I hope you've enjoyed this and it's given you some insight into some of the choices and my lazy routes on things, and some of my comments on patterns. And yeah, so I guess this is quite a lot really. I hope that everything I made last year will actually make many appearances in my daily life in the future, and I think it will. Maybe there's a couple of items that won't, but they won't go unloved. If I cannot give them the love they need, I will find a home that can. 2023 will hopefully be another year of productive but conscious, mindful sewing and knitting, and I will talk to you all about that in another episode yet to come. But for now, I will leave you to it, and again, Happy New Year. If you would like to share the things you've made, please do so. Share them on Instagram and tag me so that I know to look at it and you're sharing what you made, or go ahead and maybe make your own video, upload it, pop it in a reel, put it on YouTube, tag me, let me know. I'd love to see what you're making as well. But thank you so much for your time. Have a beautiful day. I'm gonna go get a cold drink, close all the curtains and put the air conditioning on because it's a really hot day today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.